8-unit property in this area, I'm probably going to be, there's a couple ways to look at it, right? One of which is looking at it from the lens of a price per unit, where if I'm quickly doing numbers, a price per unit, let's just say, did he even tell you anything about the size of the units? Did you get it? And did you, I'm just curious, 1 beds, 2 beds?
What?
Nothing?
1 bed, 8 1-bedroom units.
Okay, cool. 8 all 1-bedrooms. Cool. So, by the way, 1-bedroom units at $1,800, that's actually not bad. Right, actually, that's actually pretty decent. I would probably say market's probably 1,800 to maybe $2,000. I mean, that's probably not too bad. You know, obviously not even looking at I don't have an address, I don't have condition, but I'm making assumptions here. So that all being said, I'm probably going to say that you can go off of a price per unit probably pretty easily in the range of about $1 million, and that would be a pretty great deal. Anything below $1 million, it would be an unbelievable deal right away. But if we're going to try to get really conservative on evaluating this property, I'm going to say 1,800 times 8, which is the 14.4 times 12. I'm going to get the 172 gross. Let's say times a 65% expense ratio. My net operating income is about 112. Let's say into a 9% cap rate. I guess you could probably offer maybe 1.2 million and also be pretty comfortable, but that would probably be about as high as I would possibly say. And that's with also pretty heavy assumptions, but that's still being a little bit close, you know, still having some cash flow and having a decent amount of upside, because I think future value on this deal is probably worth maybe 180 a unit. I'd probably say at most 180 times 8 is like the property's only ever going to be worth maybe 1.4 to 1.6 million in this location. If that is the case, I need to be buying it substantially below replacement value or future, you know, repaired value. So I'm going to say my first offer on this building, by the way, would probably be 950 grand, but I would probably come up as high as maybe like 1.1, maybe 1.15, 1.2 if we had to squeeze out numbers. Maybe if he's willing to sell or finance, I'll probably get up to 1.2, but that's probably about where I'm going to be here. So let's see where you end up penciling, David. I'm very curious.
So here's where we're at. These are, again, very rough numbers, and I'll show you what you should be looking at that can really change the variables a lot. You know, property value around 1.4, you got to look at the area. So cap rates can go, you know, if it's a 8 cap area, you're looking at 1.2. If it's a really strong area, kind of upper middle class. Also, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I probably agree with probably like an 8 and change.
Yeah, so you know, you'll be looking at like roughly 1.2, assuming these are the expenses, which very much. I'll show you what's variable in just a second. Let's look at a realistic LTV of 75%. Let's aim for that 6 point. Yeah, it's a little higher right now, 7.25. Just about eking out a loan at 75, but realistically it's going to be probably 70% loan amount. So okay, yeah, so 75 is that, 70, yeah, so you should be able, sorry, now that we're connecting, you should be easily able to get a 75 loan, assuming it'll appraise at 125 and assuming these numbers are correct. So let's start. If you want to kind of look at underwriting from the top, so you can really, we're talking about giving an initial offer, right? So as an initial offer, you know, this is kind of where it's at. If you want to dig deeply, you can look at the following. Taxes, you know, make sure, like we spoke about in the past, want to make sure how the assessment's going to work, if there's going to be a reassessment, if it's overassessed, if it's underassessed. You know, we can kind of look into that if we want here, or we can do that later. Insurance, I don't know, I'm not familiar with this area, but a lot of cities along the Jersey, you know, coast are flood zones. You got to be careful about that. Insurance is significantly higher. So I'm guessing it's not in a flood zone, and I'm guessing roughly 12 grand, it may be 10 grand. And that would be a pretty big difference to price. Same with water, sewer. Who's paying this? Are these separately metered? Are you paying just sewer? Are you paying non-electric? So I'm putting in a pretty decent amount of cost here. Total of $12,000, $13,000. And this is where you got to really, you know, dig into the details. So that's kind of something to look at. Management, standard underwriting is 5%. If you're self-managing this, you would want to look at it. Go ahead.
I just want to quickly say if you do not know the answer 100%, you must make very strong assumptions the other direction. If you don't know for sure that everything's separately metered, like an absolute yes, like he's sent you bills or he doesn't, you know, he's giving you exact answers, you must sway the other direction and make massive assumptions that we will be paying for everything. And it's important to like really look at it as like it's black and white, guys. Like you can't play in gray areas when you're doing preemptive underwriting without actual answers. So go ahead and continue.
That's correct. Yeah, very important. Like it's going to obviously make or break a deal. And then we come down here to the financing. So this is kind of what you'd be looking at bank financing, monthly payment, 6,500, sorry, so, 78K a year, making 102, you're netting something here. Let's put in what your investment.
What, cash on cash?
Yeah, let's put in cash on cash or something. Let's say you're in, purchase price. Let's just say we use that as purchase price minus loan amount. All right. Obviously, you would have to add in closing costs and legal and all that stuff.
Plus 4%.
Yeah, plus 4%. So let's get that. Let's just see where we're at. You're at 319
times 1.0.
times 1.04. Let's just get our syntax. Why is that not working? There we go. Let's get everything in right. Yeah, so you're in about 332. Your net cash flow after everything
is net operating 102 minus 78.
Minus 78. Now, yeah, so you're.
Yep, that's fine.
All right, so your net cash flow is 23 grand, and your cash on cash ratio is 23 divided by 332. All right, so you're looking at roughly 7%. Now this is kind of year one because you're taking in your costs into account. Obviously, your cash flow goes up every year. Hopefully, your expenses don't increase at the same ratio, and over time, you'll end up at a much better place. If you always look at the first year, you're going in negative, really. Because you're at negative equity because your closing costs, you're essentially the value is 1.27. Your loan plus your closing, you're essentially at a loss year one, and then so you really got to look at the term of the loan, the exit, the value add, and the amortization. This is just the cash flow. You will be getting additional value over various other features.
Exactly. Principal pay down.
Yeah. Principal pay down is important. We can jump into that kind of underwriting if we need to. Kind of look at a 5-year time horizon, or we can do that another week and kind of look at the investor side underwriting. What I did want to say is there are 3 different underwritings you're always doing. You're always doing there's always 2, and in this case 3, and I'll explain. This is the investor underwriting, right? This is the most conservative underwriting you want to get. This is your own. Does this make sense for you to invest? This is your underwriting. Let me screenshot this. Screenshot that. These numbers. This is investor underwriting. All right, now you got to start doing the bank underwriting. Okay, so let's start changing numbers and get bank underwriting. There are 2 options here for finance. Okay, you can go traditional bank, or you can go DSCR because this is 8 units. Pretty much under 10 units, you can get DSCR financing on a multifamily. This checks the boxes. You're multifamily, you're under 10 units. So let's look at both bank financing, which is pretty much in line. Actually, this is bank financing. Okay, well, let's move that over to here. Let's call it bank financing. Now, investor underwriting will probably not include, again, if you're self-managing this, because it's a pretty small building, you probably won't be paying 5%. So let me put this to Henry. Henry, how would you look at this if you were an investor? Do you yourself want to?
I would basically look at it in the sense of where I want to look at bank underwriting and see it the way you are here. And then I want to basically push my numbers. Even if I am self-managing it, I want to take that off. I want to take that as an expense, in case I decide to change it. The vacancy rate, you have to have it there, right? It's an investor or brokers who don't know the game well or don't own properties, they'll try to have a vacancy rate of 2.5% and then have a management fee of 3%. And it's just not accurate, right? And the same thing with repairs and maintenance. They won't even have a repairs and maintenance estimate. They won't have, some things on here to try to make it look like an unbelievably good deal. But it's okay, if I was actually going to buy this, I want to see what the bank does. So what I do is I take bank underwriting. And then David, if you could flip this over to do the cap rate, change it to cap rate to, 9 or 10. You can just change it either one. But basically what I'm trying to look for is I play around with numbers, which obviously I did some quick math. You guys obviously heard me saying it before. I'd probably be around $1 million as a very quick number off the top of my head of where I know of for sure would definitely buy this deal. If you scroll down just a little bit, I want to see what the cash on cash is. Yeah, so you see this cash on cash is 15%. You just highlight that box. My cash on cash return day one, year one would be 15% at $1 million. So that's why I'm saying my starting offer, I look at bank financing and then I come below that and I kind of mess around with some numbers to say, where am I all day long and twice on Sunday, right? Am I going to be investing in this deal? For sure, I can't lose. It would be very hard for me to lose money. I would definitely be at $1 million all day long. I would tell you, Eddie, I'd make an offer right now of like $950 to $1 million. And see what they respond with. And then obviously I have now it's like, okay, well, they come back and they say like, listen, I want $1.5 million. I already know my cutoff's 1.2, right? If the bank gives me the green light and where, I can probably get a loan all day long and have a, still cash flow year one at 1.25, rough estimate, I probably want to be at 1.1, 1.15, maybe 1.2 if I just need to move some money. But you have to realize that like a lot of people have a lot of options. And if the deal really doesn't make sense, it might be still difficult for you to sell it. So anyways, as an investor, I think like all day long at $1 million, try to play, as close to $1 million all day long. And if you have to come up, you come up later on, but that's really on the individual.
Kind of align these two. Now, you may want to just take a look at your actual numbers, which may be, a lower amount of vacancy, a lower amount. I put in the standard of $800 a unit a year. Standard repairs and maintenance. Some banks will stress it at $900. But this is really, situation unique. So if your building was newly renovated, obviously those numbers are going to be lower. I didn't put in a reserve here. It's a small building, so this should kind of cover for both. But generally what you're looking at for reserves, you're looking at the age of individual units and mechanical items. So, roof, heating, plumbing, electrical, systems, whatever systems you've got there, fire safety systems. You want to look at the age. You want to kind of build in your own internal escrow because you're going to have to pay that out eventually. It might be in a year, it might be in 10 years. So you really want to build that out. But this is kind of a small property, and I think I would feel that this is sufficient. So anyway, that's the kind of underwriting that you would do as an investor. Is what's your actual today number? But Henry's right. If you're looking at this as kind of like general, you want to general ballpark it. Definitely want to go with the bank underwriting, which is going to be the most conservative. All right, so we'll use both of those for now. Now let's look at DSCR underwriting and see if this helps us or hurts us in this case. So DSCR underwriting, we'll start with zero vacancy. You only look at taxes and insurance again, so everything goes down to zero. Your expense ratio went from, what was it before? 40%, 39 to 21. Your NOI is 136. Property value jumps just because of the cap rate ratio, but it actually does not jump because the cap rate underwriting includes expenses. So let's just bring it down to the actual value that we think it is, which is about 1.2. Let's put a ridiculous like 15 cap. Again, ignore the cap rate. For our purposes, we're just trying to balance get this to show the correct loan amount.
Probably 11.
Yeah, probably. Okay. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. All right. So you're looking at a loan amount of 930.
Your interest rate's probably going to be like what, 8?
Interest rate's going to be like 9%. Roughly a 30-year.
Yeah, this checks a lot of boxes. A lot of different ways here. I'll say this checks. This checks a lot of boxes, and you're probably also DSCR. You're probably also gonna. Are you gonna do 75, or you think you can get 80? You can't get
80 because you're over 4 units. So that's kind of one of those features. Under 4 units, you can get 80. Here you can get 75. This is not giving you much more, meaning you're getting the same proceeds roughly. Right, let's compare. At a bank loan amount, you were getting $959. Here you're getting $930. Your payments are about $1,000 a month higher, $12K a year more. There isn't really any reason here to do DSCR financing.
And the cash and cash, by the way, is not accurate, so that's an irrelevant number. And Steven, by the way, is asking what someone who's new to the group is
correct. Your cash and cash, because remember, this is just for loan purposes. We cut out all expenses. In actuality, you're going to have these expenses, so ignore the cash.
And David, so for somebody who's brand new to this training, real quick, for someone who's brand new to the training, did not hear us go through all the different types of loans. You have bank financing at the bottom, and then you have DSCR. What is the difference between the two of them, and why is it important to look at both?
Just real quick, bank includes your regular depository banks, or agency is generally considered among there. The upside is that it's cheaper, generally speaking. The downside is that it is more difficult. It's lengthier. the qualifications are much more difficult, and the process is more expensive. So you're looking at, with bank financing, you're looking at typically opening up a depository account. So besides having a strong PFS, REO, tax returns, experience, you're also looking at setting up, somewhere between 5 and 20% expense accounts. So they want you to run your operation through their bank. So you actually, you gotta get into that kind of relationship. The costs are higher. They're gonna want third-party reporting, aside from appraisal, which you'll need for both. You'll also need typically an environmental, a phase 1, and a phase 2 if there is a concern like a UST, a storage tank, or any other historical concerns on this area. So if you do a phase 2, besides the cost, you'll also have to remediate that, which can cost you a lot more. Banks will not do a loan if there's a storage tank. What else?
So real quick, what I'm hearing you say, just to translate a little bit, which is essentially with bank financing, you have a lot more fees. They have a lot more control over your deal, right? As an investor looking at this property, going bank financing is definitely one thing that would be cheapest interest rate wise, but might not be cheap on the toll of control that I do not have on my deal. They're going to make me bank with them. They might make me have reserves in the bank. They might ask me for deposits. They might, they're going to underwrite me a lot more and cause it to be a lot more of a longer process to get the loan, right? It's gonna be a lot more DD on me. A DSCR loan, which I'll let you continue in a second, has a lot less to do with Henry, right? Or a lot less to do with the investor. And it might cost me more money in an interest rate, but it doesn't cost me more money in extra fees and all the other nonsense, like the emotional toll on the investor of all the extra things that they're gonna require. Decent pros and cons, and you just need to be prepared for both.